scripture before. This is weird. This is crazy. And God gives this crazy example that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And he has this guy go marry this prostitute and has this kind of weird example. And I don't really understand it. Look, I don't think I'm ever really going to get it. Maybe one day when I get to heaven, I'll ask God, why Hosea, the poor guy? You know, and Hosea is kicking back at his house and he's looking at his posters of Moses and Elijah and going, gosh, those guys are awesome. Me, oh me, I got to marry more. So this is weird and this is crazy. But God uses this scripture. And he uses this story and he uses Hosea. And as just as crazy as the beginning of the story is, the end of the story is even more crazy. Because this is what God says. You can put up that next section of scripture. Because what happens is, what happens with Hosea is he goes and he marries this woman. And then this woman who's been a prostitute for, we can imagine, a long portion of her life, leaves him. She takes off. He offers her a godly husband, a guy that's sticking around, that is loving her and is caring for her and is passionate for her, even though I'm sure it was awkward to be put in that situation. And he loves her and he cares about her, and she leaves and she goes right back to prostitution. Right back to a life of abuse and zero purpose and a complete sexual, spiritual, physical demoralization. Her life goes back to being the lowest of the low, and she chose to go that direction. And this is what it says in Hosea 3:1 later on in the story. And then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again. Even though she commits adultery with another lover, this will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them. So now even more insanity for Hosea. Hosea, go marry a prostitute. Oh, she left you? Go to her again and get her back and marry her again. Love her, Hosea. Go find her. And it says that Hosea paid all this money and he had to give these people wine and he had to give them this stuff. He gave up a lot of his finances and his resources even to get her back. He gave up a lot of what he owned to bring back this wife that he pulled off the street in the first place, and then she bolted on him again. And he said, I am going to pay whatever it takes, whatever the cost is, I'm going to bring you back. And this is what God says. You can go ahead and throw up the next section of Scripture. This is in chapter 2, verse 23b. It says, I will show love to those I called not loved, and to those I called not my people, I will say, now you are my people. And they will reply, you are our God. You guys, Jesus is weird. God is crazy. Because like it said at the beginning of this passage of Scripture, that this is a story that really is about us. Okay? Now I know we talked about Hosea, and we talked about a prostitute, and we talked about this story in Scripture. But this is God's letter. This is God's story that really has to do with God, and it has to do with us. How many of you guys are single in here? A lot of singles. Don't be ashamed, all right? I am. You know, some of you are like sitting next to the person that you want to date. You know, I am. Just so you know. I encourage you, from my own experience, if dinner and a movie sounds like a great one of your first dates, don't do it, okay? She now is my wife. Maybe it is a good date. We went to a movie on one of our first dates. She fell asleep. She's like, yeah, gosh, I'm so happy to... The last 45 minutes of the movie, I'm going, I'm an awesome date. Fantastic. Christ. Makes sense, though. Take him into a dark room, you know. Make him sit there for 2 hours. Anyways. I'm still bitter, honey. So one of the things that, and if this is another thing that is funny about Christians, this is something that youth pastors do. Youth pastors for the longest time have come to like people in their youth groups that are single, and look, I think there's good intentions here and there's a good heart behind it, and they say, all right, this is what you're going to do. And if you've done this, look, I'm not trying to get on your case. Like, it's okay, it's cool, kind of. But youth pastors be like, yeah, okay, so you want to marry an awesome, godly person. You know, yeah, I just really do. Go, all right, make a list of everything that you want in a spouse. And then, you know, keep that list, hang on to that list, and you know, revert back to it next time you meet a nice-looking girl and, you know, see if she makes the list. And that sounds like a great idea. And I think I even did that when I was in high school, because somebody told me to do it. But really what happens when you do that is you make a list of all the things that you are. So for me, Ben Fleming, okay, I like, she's got to like baseball. Yeah, she's got to like baseball. She's got to like sitting around. She's got to like not working out. She's got to like gaining weight. I don't like to gain weight. You know, she's got to like movies. She's got to like all this stuff. You know, and all of a sudden it's a list of who you are. And this is like our perfect person. When in reality, that's not the truth. What God knows what you need, okay? And for the record, my wife hates movies. I'm forcing her to watch baseball, and she loves working out. So, that didn't work out for me. And I have been more happy with my wife than I could ever possibly imagine. So these lists, they don't really work. If we really want to make an accurate list, we need to make a list of what we want to be for our future spouse someday. That's just a little tip for those of you who are single, which is a lot of you. This is awesome. I'm married now. I can give tips on being single. The funny thing is that God calls us, just like in this story of Hosea, how he goes out and he finds a prostitute. God calls us his bride. And the Bible talks about that someday when Jesus comes back, that it's going to be like this incredible wedding ceremony where his church, which is all Christians, his church, God is going to come back for his church. And then it's going to be like this wedding celebration. It's going to be this ceremony. You know why? Because God is so in love with you, and he is so passionate about you, that he wants, and it sounds almost like, see, this is another weird thing about Christianity, right? Who else says this? God is so passionate about you, he wants to marry you. And so I think about it this way. If we went to God and we said, okay, God, you need to make a list about the person that you're going to marry. And, you know, God started making a list about the perfect person, you know. Could you imagine God? Well, you got to be perfect. Had to have been alive like forever. Else the age thing isn't going to work out, you know. God created a universe. We're a lot of universes. Got to be all-knowing. But you know, when God thinks about his bride, and when he talks about who he wants to marry and who he is passionate about and who he is in love with, there's one word on God's list of who he's going to marry and who he loves. You know what that one word is? Whore.
Well, he's being serious.
Seriously. Now, I know I've been joking around about it all the time. But seriously. Like I said, this story is a picture of people. And I don't know about you, but I've been that person in my life, and maybe I've never been a prostitute. Maybe I've never done, you know, something like that. But you know what? I lend myself out to sin all the time. And my God offers me this incredible life. God offers me joy, and he offers me peace. And He offers me a life beyond anything that I could ever imagine. And He offers me substance. And He offers me purpose. And He offers me everything that I could ever want, and even more than I could ever think of. And I run out and I want to sin, and I want to take part in these other aspects of life, and I want to put my hope in things that fade away, and I want to put my hope in people that fade away, and I want to put my hope in this situation or this situation. I want to get stuck, and I want to get abused by this life. And God is saying, I'm in love with you. What are you running around for? Why do you keep going back? And I just find it hard to believe that it doesn't just break God's heart. That He brings us in and He brings us close, and then we run away. But the thing that I love about God, and this is what is so weird about God and so crazy, is that none of us have the capacity to love a person like that. None of us have the capacity in our hearts to love someone and have them leave us our entire lives and hate us at times and run away and continue to run and run and run and run and run and run. Maybe you do, but I feel like my heart would get to the point where my heart would be just so broken and messed up that I would be completely debilitated and I wouldn't be able to love anybody anymore. And look, it happens all the time in our lives. Like, we get together with somebody romantically, we break up, or we love our parents and they separate, and then we don't see one of them anymore. Or we love so-and-so in our family. We love so-and-so as our friend, and we lose them, and they're gone. Maybe they don't like us, or maybe they pass on, or maybe things don't work out. And have you ever had that feeling in your heart that I don't think I'm ever going to be able to love anybody again? I don't think I'm ever going to be able to put myself through this again. I hear it all the time from people who are in relationships that break up. I'm not finding anybody else ever again. It's over with everybody. And that's how our hearts operate. And we cut people off. And we say, forget it. You've done it once, you've done it twice, you've done it 3 times, you've done it whatever. You continue to do it. You're messing with me. You're breaking my heart. You're ruining my life. So get out of my life forever. But what God says to the people and to the person that continually breaks his heart and continues to run away, continues to prostitute themselves out to sin into these different areas of life that will completely fade away and ultimately might bring you some sort of temporary joy, but they don't matter in the long run. And God has to watch us. Keep going out doing these things. But the thing that is unbelievable, it is so weird, and it is so freaky, and it is so crazy, and it is so scandalous, is that God continues to go after us. He continues to love us. He continues to be passionate about us. And He continues to give up whatever it takes to bring you back into His house, to bring you back into His love, to bring you back into His eyes, into His kingdom, into His throne. He does whatever it takes. And what He did back thousands of years ago with His Son is He sent His perfect boy, and He sent Him to go through all the garbage that we go through. He sent Him to go grow up. He sent Him to be made fun of. He sent Him to go through puberty. He sent Him to go through all this awkwardness. He sent Him to go through finding friends and being persecuted and being hated. And He sent Him to the cross to die and to be killed in one of the worst ways that you could ever possibly be killed. He sent Him to be mangled and bloodied and broken. He paid the price for you so that you could be redeemed. So that I could be redeemed. Even though I take that love and I run around and I prostitute myself to these other ways of life that will never ever bring me fulfillment, when all God has ever wanted to do is love me. Our God is weird.